Geoff Keighley, not here.
I'm not Geoff Keighley. I'm
E3,
sorry. I wish I could be that for you, but I'm not. Yeah, E3 been dead since what? 2021.
Dead, but you know what is here? BC.
What's that?
Welcome to BC, everybody.
Yeah.
Bobby Chase talking about the.
Okay, it's like what the fuck does BC stand for?
Well,
like obviously I know what ABC stands for, but I don't.
Always be closing.
That was even more confusing. I know what the phrase BC can stand for.
Oh yes,
but I didn't know what you meant in this context.
Chase, it is currently June 12th. This is the Casual Hour. It's episode 379, and the Summer Game Fest is behind us, if you can imagine that. And we're going to talk about it. You and I have done our best to watch the hours and hundreds of games.
Oh boy, yeah.
But even though there are a lot of things to discuss, what was the impact of some of those things? And we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. We're not here to necessarily score or grade or go through everything, for God's sake, but what we're going to do is bounce around things that made an impression on us. If you're listening to this, you can go back and watch the VOD, as they call it, where we'll have Steam pulled up and go into some store pages, maybe have some of the trailers playing a little bit, some screenshots, talk a bit about wish listing, that sort of thing. So there's a lot to get through tonight, so we're not going to do a what you've been playing update. This is just Chase and I riffing, talking about the Summer Game Fest and all the things that were part of it.
Yeah, and I mean, we know there's still technically more to come. Nintendo said they're going to have something.
I've heard next week.
Yeah, I believe that. We got PlayStation stuff before
the 30th,
before
May
Summer
30th.
Games Fest. So we're not really touching on any of that stuff because they kind of already did their stuff. But generally, we're going to be talking about Summer Games Fest, the shows that came after that, and you know, there's a big smattering of them. Day of the Devs,
Tons
the
of
Devolver Digital, Future Game Show, PC Gaming Show, that kind of stuff, and then Xbox and Ubisoft.
Yep.
I think those are the big ones. Of course,
PC Game Show. So there was stuff like Wholesome Direct. I don't know if you mentioned that.
Yeah, I did not mention Wholesome Direct. Yeah, I didn't mention the Latin America Game Show or Game Showcase, which
Women-led games,
really good. Women-led games was there too. Yeah, there ton of shows, hours and hours of content, and for most of them, I felt pretty justified in not watching them live, so I could skip through a lot of games that I did not care about, and a lot of other segments I did not care about.
What did you watch live?
So I watched Summer Games Fest live.
Yeah.
And then I stuck around for Day of the Devs.
Okay, I didn't watch that.
And I watched Devolver live. And I think after that, I went, maybe I should stop watching these live. And then I watched Xbox Live. That's also a weird phrase. I watched the Xbox show as it was happening.
I watched
Xbox Live, very dead. And then I ended up watching the Ubisoft show live because it was on a different day and I had some free time and I was like, fuck it, I'll watch this.
I watched Summer Game Fest. I watched PC Gaming Show. I watched Xbox Live. And then I tried to go back and watch others. I talked about it on Friday night when we were streaming V Rising, but it was Sarah's birthday this weekend. So I was and that happens, you know, they always overlap. So I tried to get in as much as I could, but we really celebrated her. And then I did watch most of these.
I just like that. I like that idea of like, what? Your birthday's in June again?
Yeah, damn
what
it.
What the fuck?
Damn
One
it.
of these years.
Look, I've asked her and Geoff
right?
to figure this out. I can't keep going back and forth. But I've got it pulled up here. You can probably see a little bit of it on stream, Chase. I don't know how much it's going to be important to have what we're looking at for you all, but it's more for me to kind of like, because Chase is, I think you've watched more than I have. So there might be some stuff you talk about that I want to pull up and get some reference to while we're doing this.
Totally. Yeah. And there's stuff that I have notes down. And now I looked back through all the games that I noted just to make sure I knew what they were.
Yes.
But there were definitely some I was like, what the fuck what was that? I wrote something down. What the hell is that? And I had to look it up and go, oh, it's that game. That game seemed kind of cool.
So why don't we? I know that we're not going to talk about like each presentation, but what did you
I don't think we
about?
necessarily need to go show by show, but I do think there's some interesting. I think we should probably start with Summer Games Fest and just
That's what I was
talk
going to say.
about
The show itself.
how we thought that went.
Did you vote for Geoff on Twitter?
Yeah, I did. He would not like my. I think I gave him a C. I might have given him a B. I don't know. I know he was getting crushed though by some bad grades.
He was getting. There's definitely no bell curve on those grades.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair to Geoff, which you don't have to be fair to Geoff. Fuck him. But he did try to preface in a number of interviews and a number of tweets and things like that, like, hey, you're gonna know a lot of the stuff that's already in the show. Like we're not breaking a bunch of crazy shit here. Like there are gonna be some world premieres. There's gonna be some smaller stuff you've never seen before. There's gonna be some updates on things that you weren't aware of. But you know, dude, we don't have like the big No Man's Sky to show you.
He also immediately, I mean, he got ripped apart for the Game Awards for a few things. Most importantly, not even addressing what's been going on in game development. And he came out, he did that like right away. And the second thing he was dragged for was a lack of female presence on the stage. And I feel like he came out, did both those things, and he's just like at the camera, all right, motherfuckers, enough. I did it.
And I can't remember her name. I thought she was okay.
Joy?
Obviously a little deer in the headlights, but she seemed like she held her own just fine.
Totally. And I think to your point, and what I just mentioned with the industry at large, it is still difficult to find celebratory moments, but we need to be excited and move forward the best that we can, I suppose. But I think that this was overall for me, I think fine is probably even a little generous for it. Like I didn't dislike it,
sure,
but I think that if this is what we have now, there's definitely just a lack of, I don't know. I think there's showmanship. I don't know. I don't know how I feel overall, but I think it was lacking a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly doesn't have the bombast that you remember with E3. Like that felt like a huge deal. Everybody went there. Now, again, that was also pre-COVID, so sure. You know, there's certainly that factor that went in with it as well. But you know, there just was so much more excitement around it, and I think a lot of that was that we've talked about this too. There's been this democratization of these kinds of shows. Nintendo can just put up a direct whenever the fuck they want and people will watch. Sony can make their own shows. Anybody can say we're going to have a little thing now and dominate a day. So there's so much less purpose for this. Like the original whole thing of E3 is this is a trade show for GameStop managers to come and decide how many copies of a game they want to buy to sell in their stores, and that is not its purpose anymore, and it hasn't been for a long while. But as things have spread out, it makes this show smaller, just like it can't sustain what it used to.
And I think like the day before they listed all the prices for the advertisements too, and then I was just like, fuck, that's
that was a weird story / non-story of, I mean, Geoff is obviously giving some free slots to some games, and then, you know, other places are ponying up these big amounts of dollars so he can do that for other places. Also, this is just an expensive show to run anyway.
Sure.
LA is an expensive city. Getting a convention, or not a convention center, but getting a theater hall like that is no small task. The streaming stuff, I think the production of the show went really well. I think there was one like tiny screw up. I don't know if it was a script thing.
Nobody talked about Bill Clinton. That's a win.
Well, yeah, that's fair. But there was like one thing where it was like, oh, we're gonna show you this new entry in this acclaimed fighting game franchise, and then it was, wait a minute, that was Street Fighter 6 DLC. Oh, now we're gonna show you the King of Fighters one. And I get it. Like, hey, the King of Fighters were in both of them, but like that was the only thing that felt like a slip up. And and I'm not saying that to be like, oh, you guys fucked up, but it's more that the rest of the show actually really did go super smoothly, and
He's
I
got a
think he's
tight
just
fucking
used to
ship.
doing it.
It's so before we get into what we liked, I thought I would ask you, was there something that you were expecting or hoping at this show that wasn't present?
I think my real problem with this show is that I got what I wanted before the show happened.
Okay.
There were two games I was mostly interested in. One of which is SteamWorld Heist 2, which we learned about beforehand. It was not at any of these shows. Didn't have to be. They already showed it. And then the other was Metal Slug Tactics, which we got right before the show happened. And it did get shown off, I think, at one of the shows. But for the most part, it's like, well, those are the two games I really cared about. And I got to see them before the Games Fest, so I didn't have to have anything. Like, the only other stuff I care about is like Fire Emblem stuff, and that's sure as shit not going to be there because that's going to come from Nintendo. So I was pretty, I wouldn't say down on the show. I was just open to whatever came at me. And I didn't have that sense of anticipation. How about you? Did you have something you're like, oh man, I can't believe they didn't show that?
I'm really I want more Arc Raiders, man. Finals keeps getting talked about. It's the same studio. The finals is cool. It's not what I want. The Arc Raiders shit has been years now. Like, I was hoping for something more on that because I think that game looks fucking rad. But that's
it does. Like aesthetically, I'm super interested in it, but knowing that it's going to be like another one of those kinds of games, it's like, man, I know it looks cool, but I don't know if I actually care about it. But you're right. I would like to see more about it.
Yeah. So that's one that I was hoping. But all those things to be said, I think this was a perfectly fine show. There was some cool stuff that we got to see, and I'd like to hear kind of, why don't you kick us off on a game that you thought was pretty cool?
Absolutely. I'll start with what might have been my game of the show, like game of the whole time, and that's Neva.
Yeah,
which is an easy one. I mean, this is from the developers of Grease. We love Grease. This game is a similar 2D side-scrolly kind of game with an incredibly gorgeous art style. The gimmick here is that you have this wolf elk friend, and you kind of go through the story with him, and you both grow over time, and the puzzle mechanics that you can do by having a buddy like that, which we've seen in these kinds of games before. You know, A Boy and His Blob. What's the other one that was somewhat recent? It was last year, and then it came out on Switch this year, and I thought it was a this year game, and you had to tell me it was a last year game.
Planet of Lana.
Yes.
Yeah.
That one has like a blob thing that's also your friend that helps you solve puzzles and is a very pretty 2D thing. This is certainly well trodden on this one too, though,
compared to some of those. Like, that wasn't a thing you had in Greece, at least. But I think the combat looks really slick here.
It does, and it's gorgeous. I know the kind of relatively wordless storytelling that this developer is capable of, and I'm jazzed to play this one as well. It's going to be great.
This is
can't not be great.
Nomada Studio being put out by Devolver, and it's out in 2024. I don't know if they said an actual date, but
no, it's just 2024. But it is on Xbox, PlayStation, PC, and Switch, so it'll be everywhere.
We did this on Monday. I forgot to mention this. Part of the Summer Game Fest was the Steam Next Fest, which we always cover on Casual Mondays. We always preface this: if there's something that you're remotely curious about and you have Steam, give it a wish list. That helps out quite a bit, costs you nothing. So if there's something that we show you tonight that maybe you missed, or we told you more about it and you got intrigued, go give it a wish. It'll also just pop up in your email when it's available to check out. And there's a good chance that the games we cover tonight have a demo. So just something to think about.
Many of them totally do. Mm-hmm. And it also helps, not just when the game comes out, but if it ever goes on sale, they'll throw you a notification, which can be kind of nice too. It's a nice little feature.
I would love to talk to you about Battle Aces.
Battle Aces or Battle Suit Aces?
Battle Aces.
How bummed do you think these teams were that at the same show I think it was only like a couple of games between them, because I remember Battle Suit Aces showed up first, and then Battle Aces showed up. And wait a minute, we just saw that game. Oh wait, this is why is this different? Why would you name these games like this?
So I think this one seems. Brad Shoemaker talked about this game in a tweet, and he basically was just talking about how fucking rad it was. But I've been hearing that it kind of forget what you know about the RTS genre, because this one breaks a lot of the rules that go around with it. And I think it's got a hell of a style to it. RTS is a game that I typically don't play, but when I get into them, I really get into them. And I think this one, bringing in some of the cool mechanics, the style of it, I feel like this is one that I want to keep on my radar. It doesn't have a date that I saw, but it's being put out by Uncapped Games, both developed and published by. I just think this game looks really fucking slick, and this cinematic they have is so badass.
Yeah, I do like this cinematic. I think I was really sold on this until I saw the gameplay and went like, oh, it's an RTS game. Yeah, sure. But even though, I mean, I know from what you said, they're trying some new things in the genre, and maybe that'll turn out to be something really cool. Since we were already talking about it, I kind of liked Battle Suit Aces, which is a roguelike deck builder thing, but with mechs, which is very much a genre we have touched on a lot on Casual Mondays. And
it also looks really cool.
It does look cool. I think there's some neat ideas here about recruiting a team, and those teams have their own mechs, which have their own cards. And it's. I think the really interesting one is this is done by the same developer from Battle Chef Brigade, which was a pretty popular game a handful of years ago, and this is their new one. I think it looks solid.
Agreed. The other one that was mentioned that I thought was cool, well, I got really excited about the Pal World stuff. Like, I'm going to go back into that. Just been waiting for more content on that. I think Wonder Stop is really cool. And this is such a weird game for the people involved. So you've got the creator of the Stanley Parable. You also have the composer from Minecraft, making all the music for it. And I'm wondering what kind of twists and turns and weird shit's going to pop up in this, because you're an ex-warrior that has simplified your life to open up what appears to be a cozy game. But in the trailer, there was some very like dark undertones, especially at the end. And it's Annapurna, which they hit far more than they miss. But I think this one looks really fucking cool. And I'm curious.
Yeah, there's an anime that this reminded me a lot of called Violet Evergarden, which is 100% like this was like, hey, you used to be like a machine of war, like an android that did war stuff, and now you're like typing stuff and delivering letters to people. What the hell? Do you have any trauma from back then?
Sure.
And I thought this was interesting. It's probably not one I would play, but it does have a really good pedigree to it and an interesting premise.
One of the things with these types of games, you don't get a narrative beat too often, and so I think if they can bring in something that propels that forward, it'll be pretty cool to see.
Yeah. There wasn't a whole lot more at Summer Games Fest. Like, we don't need to look at these, but like we saw more Metaphor Refantasio, which is by the Persona
that
devs.
game looks really cool, I think.
They did show off that like this has an actual job system to it, which sounds pretty cool. So like no personas, but adding jobs, and I think that could be kind of neat. I really liked the look of Mecha Break.
Yes,
it just looked like crazy mech action, but then I saw that game is multiplayer only, and it's like
that's
up to 60 players. And I went like,
sweaty.
I'm not playing that. It looks cool, but if there's no single player to that, I ain't playing that.
Fair.
Capcom showed off that Kunitsu. We've seen this one before. Kunitsugami, Path of the Goddess. We learned more about that. That actually seems like it's a lot like that mode from Monster Hunter Rise, where you kind of build defenses and then let them all come, which makes sense if that's also Capcom. Other games have done similar things, but I think that game looks really colorful and interesting. I just want to see a little bit more about it. But the other ones that really piqued my interest, one was Sonic and Shadow Generations.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. You're a big Sonic fan.
I am, but also I have not played a Sonic in a very long while. You've played more Sonic than I have recently with Frontiers.
Fair. Yeah.
But you know, I like Sonic Adventure 2 quite a bit. That's where Shadow came in and seeing. Like I remember really enjoying the first Sonic Generations game. I think there was a lot of cool callbacks to old stuff there,
Yeah.
and seeing this trailer and seeing the way that, you know, you're using your homing attack and you're doing your grinds and your stuff like that. I think it's weird that they decided to take away his gun, which was only in one game, but like that's the Shadow the Hedgehog game. You took away his gun,
Yeah.
and also you gave him weird devil wings for no fucking reason. What the hell's that about? But that seems silly.
You mentioned it, and I know we didn't talk about it because it was on the Sony show, but it had a few other trailers here. I got to tell you, to the surprise of nobody who knows me, I think Monster Hunter Wilds looks fucking fantastic. So I'm very excited about that. The other look at Space Marine 2 looks awesome. I'm really excited for that one. And then the Hyper Light Breaker, I'm very curious about. I think that could be a lot of fun.
This last trailer, I don't know. I felt like the first trailers we saw, the game looked a lot more fluid and fast, like Solar Ash.
Yeah.
But this one, you know, it didn't seem like there was as much like super quick navigating stuff. It felt a lot slower, which is it's kind of off-putting to me. It was like, maybe this isn't what I thought it was. I was really excited for this at one point, and this trailer didn't do a whole lot for me, but I still want to see more. I mean, I know they have a great pedigree. Hyper Light Drifter was a great game.
Yeah. If it ends up being really something special, I think it'll be something we stream at some point in time, kind of like a Risk of Rain. But I don't see a link for it here, but I do think it's really cool to call out the studio announcement from, is it Outer Sloth? Is that the Inner Sloth?
Sounds right.
Where they're basically funding indie games, like, hey, the Among Us developers, where they were basically like
Inner Sloth, because it was outer, because they did like a joke of like in for us but out for that. The Among Us people are publishing a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, and the reason I brought it up is they've got this Mars First Logistics. We tried this on stream. It was a lot, but this is one of the games that it's Outer Sloth. There we go. So Outer Sloth is now going to be publishing indie games, and they made a shit ton of money, and they want to put that back into the community, which I think in an era where things are being shut down, that's fucking cool.
Yeah.
So
totally. The last thing that I cared about on Summer Games Fest, and care is maybe a strong word, was Skate. We got to see some real gameplay of Skate. This was the only real celebrity cameo we got the whole time. You got to see Tim Robinson, and he did Tim Robinson things.
He's apparently a skater.
Yeah, oh yeah. I remember he was a skater.
I didn't know that.
So that kind of fits. I've also I've been watching Detroiters lately for the first time. So I'm even more tuned in to Tim Robinson stuff. So that was cool to see him. But also nice that they didn't try to bring him on stage and have him talk live to an audience. Like that's not.
It was about the perfect use of a cameo, I think.
Absolutely. And again, I don't think we saw any more celebrity shit the entire time, which was really welcome.
Yeah.
But I think Skate looks okay. I mean, we got to see very little of the actual game. It was mostly the fun sketch.
I did a technical test on it, which literally had no backgrounds and stuff. It was just more about like input, and I can't say a whole lot about that, but I will say cool to see where it's going.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of, hey, this corporation owns this city and then went bankrupt, so now the town is empty and you get to basically build a whole skate park out of it. Like that's a fun idea. It's just been a long time since they've made a skate game. So
yeah, man,
do they still have it? Is kind of my question. And
I know.
Do you want anything else from Summer Games Fest before we move on?
Let's pop over to Days of the Dev.
Yeah.
It's right here after it, so we can just there's a few here we can look at.
Totally. Right up there at the top, UFO 50, baby. It's only taken 7 fucking years.
I'm really curious about this one, man.
So I played a demo of this at PAX West literally 7 fucking years ago. And I got to see Derek Yu and talk to him and tell him, hey, Spelunky's great, I read your book. I have to imagine that this game is completely different after 7 fucking years.
I would think so. This comes out September 18th. Moss Mouth.
It's got a real date. Yep. Yeah. Only to PC at the moment. No, I know that they're exploring console versions as well. I think even the version I played, again 7 fucking years ago, was on a console, or at least had a console controller with it. They emphasized again, like, these are 50 full games. These are not mini games. This isn't WarioWare stuff. These are 50 full games. It actually reminds me a lot of a DS series called Retro Game Challenge, where like the idea was like, we made fake old games, and there were going to be fake sequels to our fake old games. And it seems like a lot of that kind of stuff is in here. Maybe not a story exactly, but you can piece together, oh, here is a fake developer, and you can see how they developed different kinds of games over the 80s. So like some of them will be 16-bit, and then they kind of get into 32-bit. And
that's cool.
I think that's really fun, and I'm just really excited for what this collection of games is going to be.
Totally. We got to talk about Screenbound. This is something I've had on my wish list for a while.
This was on so many shows.
It really was, man. It is really blowing up. It looks, the premise of it, if you're not familiar, it's a 2D game in a 3D world, and you are playing a game on what looks to be a Game Boy, but you are moving in real world. In the world that you are playing on the screen, you are moving in that world. So if there's like a platform that's going up and down on your 2D screen, you will be on that platform in a 3D world. It looks incredibly ambitious.
It is like 3D in that. So on the 2D screen, you're obviously only moving left to right, but in the 3D world, you can move to your left, which is actually the background of the 2D game. And I think what's really interesting here is different mechanics are on different parts of the world. Like enemies will only show up on the 2D screen on the Game Boy version, and so you won't see them as you're walking around the 3D space, but you still need to avoid them because they are still there. But you only see them on this one screen. It actually reminds me so much of many DS games where you'd have to look at the top screen for something or look at the bottom screen for other stuff to know how things are supposed to work. I think there are a lot of really cool ideas. It also sounds, I couldn't quite tell, but the way some of the developers talked about it during one of these shows, it almost made it sound procedural. Like like they built the game in the 2D version, and then a computer something extracted and extruded of how it'd work in 3D space. Maybe they were just talking about how they started developing it, and I think this is they haven't said, right? This isn't like a roguelike or anything. This is
no, it just says Screenbound is a game about being distracted but totally in control.
Okay, so I kind of wonder if, just the way they talked about it made it sound like, oh, maybe this is like a procedural roguelike-y kind of thing, but it also seems like it makes sense that this would be just a single player kind of experience.
I'm trying to see if they've had any. There's not a whole lot that I know from Crescent Moon Games, but there's no date on this one. I imagine it'll be next year, but it looks cool.
PC only at the moment, but I could. It again, like you said, it's blowing up right now. I could totally see this showing up on other consoles here.
I got it pulled up here really quick. I'm going to jump the line, but I think Kieran looks fucking great. This is from the Game Bakers. They've made a lot of stuff. Fury. They also made what was the other one? Haven. That was one I played the demo for. Never played all of it. This is a climbing game. I don't know how much different it'll be from Jusant, but
are you ready for more climbing after Jusant, or are you climbed out?
I'm kind of climbed out, but this one stylistically looks really cool, and we'll see how it goes. But I wanted to call that one out because I thought that looked pretty neat from that showcase.
It did have a nice look to it. One that I thought was really stupid and fun was building relationships.
Man, I was hoping one of us would talk about it.
What a silly fucking game that is. What I really liked is that the developer who I think was very fun in some of the videos that showed him. He talked about how this isn't a dating game. Like there are kind of dating elements, I guess. Like you can start to form some relationships, but this is not a game where you are actually trying to make relationships. what he compared it to instead was a short hike, which awesome. Great. What a perfect game to tell me a game is like. I'll be like, yes, I want more of that. But obviously, as you're seeing on screen here, the gimmick is that in building relationships, you are a building, you are a house, and you talk to apartments and windmills and other structures as you go around this island, and you just tumble. Kind of like that everything game where you would just, there's not really a lot of animation to it. You're just a fucking house. So you just roll as a house like it's fucking Katamari Damacy. Excellent. I love it. I will tell
so anybody listening to this, tune in 9 p.m. Central on twitch.tv/the casual hour on Monday the 17th, where we will show a demo of this on our Casual Monday stream. So I had this one queued up for us.
Yeah, can't wait. That one's going to be a lot of fun.
I think we don't have to, I'm just going to briefly rattle off a few here. I think While Waiting looks really interesting and pretty.
They also showed off this at a lot of the shows as well. Definitely a fun idea. I like the idea, like, hey, you could just not play this game and literally wait, and you will win. But the fun part is fucking around while you're waiting. That's fun.
100%. I'm glad to see more stuff going a little to the left. And I thought Phoenix Springs had a pretty
man. Is this going to be the next game that disappoints us as like, oh, holy shit, look at that art style. I really don't like this point and click adventure game stuff. But holy shit, this pop art style is so incredibly good.
It's very good. And I'm open to a great point and click if it's I really played a lot of them a few years ago. This one, the style's so fucking striking that I feel like I have to experience it. And
right. I mean, but you felt the same way about Harold Halibut, right? And,
Harold Halibut was beautiful but slow.
That didn't go down well for you.
It did not.
No, I and again, Phoenix Springs, they showed off at a bunch of these. I think they showed it off at the Latin America showcase. I think it was the women-led studios one as well. It got a lot of screen time, and you understand why, because it is fucking gorgeous.
Oh yeah,
it's just a beautiful game.
It's an indie with a capital I.
The last one on my list was a role puzzling adventure, which I think we'd already known about, but we got to see more trailer stuff here.
I've got the demo downloaded as well, so we'll check this around the 17th.
Nice. Yeah, I do want to see how this plays or how this feels like in real time. Because so this is another Nick Sutner joint. He's the lead writer on this one. I really like Nick Sutner's work.
Totally.
He's also worked on what else do I have? Jet Jet.
Oh yeah,
the one that we didn't like. Jet Lone Far Shore.
Far Shore.
Something.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. We didn't like it, but that game still had an aesthetic and style that was really cool. He also worked on Carto and Celeste, so he's got some cool writing chops. But this one, man, I wonder if the gimmick here that when you move, the row or column that you're on moves with you. That seems really cool for the puzzles. I wonder if that will get annoying and tedious when it comes to just trying to navigate the normal world.
It reminds me a little bit of the Necro games. The way that the
Necrodancer, Crypt of the Necrodancer.
Yeah, because like you're moving on beat in those, even when you're not like fighting. So I just wonder if it'll be similar feeling, because you kind of get in a flow state with that too.
Yeah, but just like the idea that if I wanted to pick something up, and I don't even know if you pick things up in this game, they show one thing where it's like there's a sword on the ground, and you don't pick up the sword, but you have to like move next to the sword, and then you kind of push it into the enemies. Yes. And while that seems really cool from a puzzle standpoint, as a person who's just played Zelda, you're like, can I just fucking slash the enemy? Like, why do I need to go through like a bunch of bullshit to just get to the enemy?
It's also the artist from Braid, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, I think it looks nice. I am curious how it plays, and if it's going to feel good or if it's going to feel like a chore. I mean, I know the story's going to be good and it's written well, but I just wonder how that thing is actually going to play.
Totally. What show are we hopping to next, my man?
Let's talk about Devolver.
Okay. I don't see a link to it here on...
That's okay. They didn't show much.
Okay.
Devolver fucking bummed me out, man. Did you end up watching the Devolver show?
No.
They showed like 3 games and some updates to some games. Like there's
I saw Angerfoot's coming out next month.
Yeah, Angerfoot looks cool, as we've seen before. I mean, they showed off. Hey, there's a new co-op mode in Cult of the Lamb, which is cool.
Yeah, I
but I don't think that's
down.
the thing you lead your show with. Of like, here's the games that we're making, and it's like, well, that's a little update to a game that's already been out for a while.
It's right here. Shit, my bad. Yeah, Cult of the Lamb getting co-op is cool, but I think maybe a little too late.
Yeah, totally. And also this Jump the Shark is maybe a little strong, but I do think they've gotten a little too self-indulgent on here. So the last show is where they kind of felt like they ended one story more or less of what they've been doing with these shows, which was really fun when they first started, and then I think got a little bit old. And this one is similar in that it was all about Volvi, the Vol mascot, fake mascot thing they've got for the studio. But they showed so much of this little short film story that they made, and so little of actual games. I just kind of wondered what we were even doing here. The one that I thought was really interesting was Tenjutsu, though. That was the game that I saw.
I did see this game, and I thought
excited me.
You would like an anime roguelike?
Yeah, I mean it certainly has some anime, but I mean this is from the Dead Cells designer, so it's got some chops already. I just think the pixel animation is so fucking smooth. I mean,
it really is.
We're seeing this kind of cutscene stuff right now, which I also think looks nice. But when you get into the actual game, it is just some of the smoothest pixel art animation I've seen, and it looks fucking rad.
Yeah, this one looks like it's gonna have the fucking juice.
Yeah, roguelike beat 'em up. Yeah, totally seems cool. To be determined on release dates, PC only at the moment, but Dead Cells ended up coming to everything. So we'll see. Yeah, I was really, really impressed with what I saw from that, but not much else at the Devolver show.
I've got Sumerian 6 downloaded, demo of that, and I think that could be cool. I've started it up, and it's got a look to it for sure. Writing seems to be there, but I haven't got the mechanics down too much. Angerfoot we played a lot of on stream for Mondays. I think that game will be dumb fun. We talked about Neva Skate Story. We've mentioned in the past looking cool. Same with Plucky Squire, but
yeah, I mean, I think Crush House seemed fun, but it was also at a billion shows, so it wasn't like I could pin that for Devolver. Yeah, I don't know. I was not impressed with the Devolver show, like I have been in years past, and I think they're just getting a little too cute in making their own. Making their own lore for stuff, and I was like, can we get back to some games, please? You barely showed anything.
I know that we got some time left on the show tonight, but I think we're gonna spend most of our time, not most of it, we're gonna talk a lot about the Xbox show. Is there any smaller shows that you wanted to dip into before we get to that?
Yeah, I mean maybe less shows and more just games. Abyss Cross Zero, I thought looked really cool, very very anime. Somebody watched Kill la Kill and decided to make a video game kind of around it. They've got the Akira motorcycle in there, a Mega Man Legends style art style. I think that looks really cool. That's coming to PC and says more platforms coming soon. That was at the Future of Play. It was on some other stuff too. Wholesome Direct. We should probably talk a little bit about Wholesome Direct. There was again not much I was super excited about here. It feels like they too have kind of found a rut that they're in. A lot of crafting stuff, which is generally your thing, but also we kind of talked about that offline. Do you want to talk about that a little more?
Yeah, I think that I've walked my path here, and I know what I want out of one of those games. And I think a lot of these are. They want to be the curl instead of curl up with a book. It's now curl up with these. And like these are, I'm not trying to say this in a way like I think anybody can play them. I play a lot of cozy games, but I watched part of this with my wife, and she was very much like, "That looks good. That looks good." And she only plays Animal Crossing, so I think, I mean, I'm
not saying they need to add chainsaws and guns to any of these games, but I feel like we have we had a thing where it was like, oh, it's all fishing games, and then it was, oh, it's all farming games, and now it's all crafting games, and it
witches.
just feels like we kind of go through these waves. Yeah, absolutely. One though that I saw that I did really like was Goodlands. I thought that would look really fun. So that's a bit of Animal Crossing, mostly like the picking up fossils stuff. Like this is a game about paleontology. So it's a little bit Animal Crossing, and it's a little bit Sable in that you're kind of going around these desert environments and finding dinosaur bones, and you are dinosaurs. You're like anthropomorphic dinosaurs as you're searching for them. It's got like an old style PS1, maybe like an N64 almost graphic style to it that looks like very low poly and fun. That one did catch me. But yeah, again, the wholesome direct was kind of a bummer for me. I skipped through most of it.
I've been playing most nights Caravan Sandwich, and it's very good.
Okay. That looks cool.
Speaking of Sable, like that's why I clicked on it, because there's a lot of Sable stuff on this one. It's cool, man. So maybe if we have time on Monday, I'll pop that one up and show you it in motion. But that one was really cool. And look, I'm glad the Wholesome Direct's here. It's just a very.
It was a huge breath of fresh air when it first came out, and it's just been out for a while, and I think it kind of needs its own revamping, and I think just the whole cozy game industry needs somebody to kind of come around and do a paradigm shift of, you do not need to make all of these similar kind of looking games. We can do some different stuff with these.
I downloaded the demo. I did not realize at the time. I thought, oh, this kind of looks like something Chase might be into. This is Afterburn.
Oh, really?
Yeah, okay. Afterburn made this. So I think there's gonna be some cool puzzling with it. But Pup Champs, there's a demo. I got it downloaded right now. It looks like turn-based, grid-based soccer. So could be something to check out.
Yeah. I watched the Future Game Show. Really not a whole lot that I cared about at the Future Game Show. The one thing that was new for me, well, it wasn't even new, was Shim, which is the one where you're the little shadow that jumps around shadows.
I was going to talk about it this week. I've been in the play test for that.
Okay. I mean, that game looks great, but that game looked great a year ago, so it's hard to get excited. That game's coming out like next month, so we'll see really soon if that thing's got the actual juice. But
it's got some good juice.
It was just hard to get excited about it when it was like, okay, I've known about that game. I've known about that game for years. Like, why?
Yeah.
That's the one thing I wrote down for this show. Right before we get to Xbox, I will say, I think my show of the whole time was the Latin American Game Show, which really surprised me that there were so many cool games that were at this show. I think like per capita, this was the show of shows for me. We don't need to go through all of these, but like Prisma, it comes from the Chris Tales developer, and man, I didn't really jive with Chris Tales, but it looks gorgeous, and this game also looks gorgeous. A lot of like really cool art to that, but has no release date or anything. That's
Arco was on there. We played that. That was cool.
Yeah, Arco, we saw more of. Windrunners, I think, looks really cool. As somebody who loves Luftrausers, this is definitely like a spiritual successor to Luftrausers, or like a Jet Lancer. And that's a roguelike side-scrolling dogfight game, which just, man, I think, I don't usually care about music too much, but that game has some fucking jazzy, dancey music that I was really into. Despelote is a game that I've seen. I think I saw it first last year, but it's kind of an adventure game with a really interesting art style that's got like this. It's like photographic backgrounds that have then super desaturated, and it's about soccer. I don't usually care about soccer. I don't usually care about adventure games, but this one, for whatever reason, is just really, really cool to me. Awesome. Soul Quest. Bobby, have you ever heard me talk about a game called Muramasa the Demon Blade?
Almost every month.
Yeah, I'm a fucking sucker for any game that tries to do those. And this one looks really cool. It's all about air juggles with enemies, and it has some really cool animation to it. Some of the rest of the game looks a little bit rough, but the combat itself looks awesome. But then the thing that excited me the most at that show was Sky Ocean's Wings for Hire.
Sky Ocean's Wings for Hire. Let me see if I can find it.
So I never played Skies of Arcadia.
Oh, I did see this, and I was like, should I download the demo for Chase? And I didn't, but I will now.
So Skies of Arcadia came out on the Dreamcast, and then it had a port onto the GameCube, and I never played it, but I always meant to. It seems like a really cool RPG that is kind of a cult classic. And this feels like we made that game, but indie-fied it. And what really interests me here is the turn-based combat, because it is turn-based RPG combat. But what's interesting is it's just so dynamic. Like, as you watch this trailer, these are basically turn-based battles that are happening here, and you'll see like lots of different camera angles and movement for the characters, and it's not just my row is standing over here and your row is standing over here and we do our little attack animations at each other. It feels cinematic and has so much movement and life to it, and I thought that was really, really rad. And I'm pretty jazzed about this thing that I'd never seen before.
That's always like, that's what you want from these shows. You want to walk away feeling super fucking jazzed about something.
Absolutely. This one's coming out this year. It's coming out on everything, including Switch. So this is one I am looking forward to quite a bit.
I'm going to do a speed run. Give me 2 minutes to tell you that I think Among the Wild looks like a really cool survival crafting game that was shown at the PC Game Show. I Am Your Beast is fantastic. James from Ground Shatter talked about it as well. This is a really cool kind of neon white take on a run and gunner.
In my notes I had, this is the closest thing we'll get to a 3D Hotline Miami.
Yes.
It's a dude throwing his pistol at people's heads, and then it's bouncing off. You catch the pistol, and you shoot the guy in the head, and they get big red X's on their heads when you kill them. Just so much style. Looks super cool. I was digging to that one.
Very fucking rad. We played it on Monday. I think Tactical Breach Wizards is really fucking good. I'm excited for that. I also have a demo downloaded for The Rise of the Golden Idol. I can't wait to check that one out. And then the other one that I thought looked really cool from this one, where's it at?
I thought Death Sprint 66 looked pretty cool.
That's
like the free running racing game.
It's basically Mario Kart, but you're on your feet. It's fucking great.
Yeah, it reminded me of the PS2 game Kinetica, where you had like wheels on your hands and feet. One more from the PC Gaming Show that I want to talk about right before we go. And I'm probably going to make you download this demo too, which I don't know if you're going to like this game so much, but Wonder Stars.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I saw this is the one that is very anime.
This is 100% anime.
Yeah.
It is like, hey, we are channeling Dragon Ball Z right here. But I like this idea of it's an RPG, turn-based RPG, but you don't have weapons exactly. You have a bunch of words, and in anime you have to say your cool special move out loud because it won't work unless you do that. So you're actually crafting your special moves using the words that you have in your inventory, and I think that is really rad how they will modify the attacks based on the way you say your special move. It looks super fun.
Maybe
I
we
want to play
start
that game.
our stream at 8 on Monday and cram in a few more, and like spend a little bit more time with some of these that we want to check out.
Sure.
All right, we're going to talk about Xbox. I think this was arguably the most important for Microsoft, especially. Sure. Like, there's been a ton of just building resentment, pressure, curiosity. There's been layoffs, acquisitions, falling far behind in the hardware's arms race. Game Pass is plateaued. There was a ton that they needed to put out because they've been talking since 5-6 years ago about some of these games. And I think right out of the gate, I will say, I think this is one of the best presentations I've seen Microsoft do in some time. And I think in general, I think it was a really good showing for them. Now, is it enough to forgive the sins? I'm not here to say that yet. But
that's exactly what I wrote down. I thought it was a solid show, but I do not think it's enough to turn the ship at this point. But it is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at Sony versus Microsoft, the state of play, which is never the big one, definitely stands in the shadow of this because there's a lot of cool stuff coming out this year finally, but Microsoft still has a lot to prove. So they came out and immediately kicked this thing off with Call of Duty. I haven't played a Call of Duty campaign in years, but with it being on Game Pass, I might check this one out and just see, like, what does a Call of Duty game feel like? I'm not excited whatsoever about Call of Duty. So
no, enjoy downloading 1 billion gigabytes of data.
300 now, I think, is what it is.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, it's whatever. You download those things piecemeal. Most people will just not even download the campaign at all, or some people will delete it as soon as they're done with it. Yeah.
Chase, you're playing a lot of Doom right now.
I am playing a lot of Doom. It is weird that I was playing Doom and now more Doom is showing up.
Doom: The Dark Ages, a medieval-esque prequel to.
Was this the first time we heard about this? I feel like
it is.
Okay, man. I feel like I heard something about medieval Doom at one point.
It was leaked that there was going to be, the name was leaked, The Dark Ages, but I love 2016 Doom. I think Doom Eternal's fine. I think this looks really fucking dumb and good.
I was really turned off by it at the beginning because my thought was you gave the Doom guy a shield. What the fuck is wrong with you? The whole point of 2016 was fuck shields, fuck cover. You're about running and gunning and ripping things apart. You want to be super mobile. And then the more I thought about it, the more I thought, okay, you know what? What is a shield but mobile cover? Like you are being mobile. Yeah. And you have a way to defend yourself as well. So maybe it opens up more gameplay opportunities to be mobile more often or to discourage turtling and sitting down in one spot. So I've started to come around on a little bit. I still think it's silly, which of course, I mean, it's Doom. It's made to be silly. I do like that shield can be thrown like a glaive, like a Hades style.
That thing's fucking rad.
Yeah, it's got a fucking chainsaw blade on it. Also, you fucking rev it like a goddamn chainsaw.
Shoving a skull into a grinder and making those bullets like this, I think, and the mech. I mean, look, it's over the top. It's stupid. They was sneaky though because they did not put it at the bottom. But this is launching day and date on PlayStation.
So, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, Phil says everybody deserves Doom.
Fair enough. You know what? I'm still enjoying normal original Doom. I think that's a fun game.
I won't talk much about it here. I'm very excited for State of Decay 3. I really enjoyed State of Decay 2.
Sure.
We'll see how that goes, but let's talk Starfield for a quick second.
Why?
Because I just wanted to say I don't think this matters at all, and I think people are more
different.
It's different.
I didn't know it was Starfield for a very long time because it doesn't look like Starfield. It doesn't feel like Starfield.
I think that they expect Shattered Space to be their cyberpunk era of redemption. I don't think this is
their Forsaken King.
Yes, but I do think that the creation engine studio for this, where people are putting mods into it, I've seen all kinds of basically every Star Wars characters in this game now, so you can make it that.
Yeah.
I thought South of Midnight looked incredible. They had a really great teaser last year or the year before.
I don't even remember what this is.
South of Midnight has this really awesome art style
the big gator.
With the big gator sequence at the church. Yes. I think this looks kind of like a Kenna Bridge of Spirits in a way. Like if you remember that game, like I think it's kind of going through that. This feels like a spiritual rare game, a modern rare game. Like I think that'll be cool. The music and the writing,
it's got a real sense of place for sure.
Yes,
like this game is Creole as fuck.
Yes.
Which is it feels more authentic to that area, and also just weird. Like what is that thing? Like a fish or a frog?
That's a catfish,
right?
Yeah, catfish.
Yeah.
But I think this had such a personality to it. It looked unique. It did not feel like the run of the mill bullshit. Like I'm excited for this, and it comes out this year, which is I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it comes out this year, I think.
Yeah,
it looks cool, man.
Claire Obscure Expedition 33.
Fuck yes.
So as I watched the trailer for this, I thought, man, this setting does not excite me whatsoever. Like this is like Victorian fantasy stuff. Like I'm not for it. But very similar to like the that Sky Ocean's Wings for Hire. Like the the turn-based scene one that it's a JRPG with turn-based combat. It's not a JRPG, but it's an RPG with turn-based combat. You're like, okay, that's weird. And seeing that it does really dynamic things with it, like we're both playing Paper Mario right now, Thousand Year Door, and that game is turn-based, but it has the context-sensitive action button stuff, and this has similar stuff, but to a much higher degree of you have
parries, all that shit.
Yeah, you've got parry stuff, you've got hit the button at the right time for extra damage timing stuff, you've got aiming, like, hey, this is your chance to aim at a thing and you have to hit it, which for me reminds me of SteamWorld Heist. I'm like, okay, I'm down. So as kind of bored and turned off as I am by the setting of the game, the gameplay stuff was starting to really, really hook me to the point where I'm like, okay, maybe I'd play that. I could deal with that.
That was one of the biggest surprises for me of the entire.
It was one of the first things they showed too, right?
Yeah, I was like, wait, what is this? And I thought it was something with that EA game that I ended up liking. That was a first-person shooter with magic. Avium.
Blank.
Something. Immortals of Avium.
Immortals of Mm-hmm.
But no, I'm really excited for that. I will say Blizzard continues to make some of the best cinematics in games. I thought that cinematic was really cool, and I'm very curious to get a whole new class with Vessel of Hatred. And the most recent updates that they've made to Diablo 4 are actually pretty good.
That's fucking gross, man.
Dude, it was real when her arms split.
I didn't need to see arms splitting in my presentation. That was good. I didn't need that. I'm okay.
Let me quickly get through a few things that they showed more of that I think look cool. I think Avowed is still looking like something I will check out.
Hey,
I think
it's Obsidian. I'll take a look at it.
Fable continues to be I just wanted to make the IT crowd be all the characters in this.
Sure.
It's the British Office, but we'll see.
Man, I did not know how to feel about Fable. It said it was in-game footage or in-game engine, but we weren't really seeing gameplay. Maybe like parts of that was gameplay. Yeah. But we weren't seeing like UI and stuff like that. It feels funny. It seems okay.
Yeah.
It was hard to get a sense of like who you are and what you're doing in that game.
Deep dive. Like, show me what you're doing here. Let me see how you're playing with it. Like, it's such a weird franchise. It's a franchise that was built on lies and anticipation at the beginning. So it's always weird when a new Fable is coming out, and we've gone through like a bunch of false starts with Fable somewhat recently, and man, I had such a good time with Fable 1 and Fable 2 despite them not living up to their promises. And I've just been so disappointed by all the Fable stuff since then. And I don't know. I'm open to a new Fable, but I need to see more than what I've seen. Agreed. But I'll tell you what I did see, and might have been one of my favorite things from the entire show.
Yeah, you're high on this one.
I am so high on Perfect Dark, man. I think this trailer really kind of blew my fucking socks off. I was not expecting it to be what it was.
So what excited you about Perfect Dark?
When I was watching this, I legitimately thought I was watching something with Deus Ex. I got very excited about that. And I'm more excited about Deus Ex looking back on it after my time with Cyberpunk, where you are in this world and branching stories and kind of like this immersive sim. But the fucking tone I loved Perfect Dark back in the day. So I'm looking back at this a little bit with rose-tinted glasses as well. And I'm thinking,
did you just play the original Perfect Dark, or did you play Zero on the 360? Or?
I played 360 one too. I played both of them.
Wow. Okay, I didn't even play the 360 one. So
I was like just checking anything I could at the time for the 360 when that came out. But this one, I thought the gadgetry on there's a slow burn to it, and I think the pacing of what they showed, like going from this moment where I'm scouting this out, I'm talking to the man in the eyes in the sky. And then all of a sudden it goes sideways. I think that they had like that Mission Impossible vibe to it. I think the overall acting that we see in this trailer is really well done. The setting, the look of it, and even like the one thing I wanted was the guns to have alternative modes, and you get to see a little bit of that here with this. With a little bit, yeah, not a lot, but a little bit. I think this looks.
That was my problem. You only see one gun.
Right.
She's got her one pistol, and it can shoot pistol shots or it can shoot like an electric blast.
Yeah.
But like for me, when I think about Perfect Dark, I think about the laptop gun. I think about the Farsight that shoots through walls. I think about the Mauler. I think about the Slayer that shoots the guided rockets. And I think about all these cool weapons. And in this trailer, we saw one gun. And I'm like, okay, it's the first trailer that we saw. But what I want out of Perfect Dark is a cool first-person shooter. Yeah. And this 100% is going into that Deus Ex style of an immersive sim, which is fine. It's not my genre of game. And that's a little disappointing to me because I was hoping that Perfect Dark would end up being a little bit more like the kinds of things we saw before. And so I got a little disappointed by it. It's not a big deal. I wasn't expecting a new Perfect Dark to knock my socks off or anything. But I am very excited for somebody like you and for a lot of people out there who are really jazzed to see this turn into an immersive sim, because I do think this has a lot of potential as an immersive sim.
Yeah.
Because of the alternate fire modes on some of these things. I mean, we didn't see a laptop gun, but you can absolutely see how a laptop gun. Sure. But I think you can see how throwing in like, oh, what if we made Perfect Dark but Hitman? And we got to see a lot of stuff. Like she goes into like the view where different people are color coded based on whether they're enemies or civilians or whatever.
But there's also that weird sci-fi shit at the end of it, which we're seeing now on stream. Like
like the glitchy stuff that's going on. We'll have to see. I was not as excited by this trailer as you were, but I see its potential for the people who like this genre of game.
Why don't we end our coverage with what Microsoft ended with and talk a little bit about this? Because you and I have talked about Gears of War.
Right before we do that, I thought Mixtape was cool.
Oh my God, thank you. Holy shit, I had all my notes on Mixtape. God damn. I am all in on Mixtape. I might be too old to connect with it like I once did, but I'll look back and think about times with a mixtape.
It's very much what if you made a John Hughes video game.
Yes. Yes.
And maybe it's a little cheesy and naive in that same sense, but I don't know, man. I'm not heartless. I like the idea of running through a field and then just kind of floating and zooming through it. That seems kind of cool. I like this. Teen drama. Let's get into some shit. Kind of stuff.
I was in immediately when I saw it. The music.
It also seems like it has a lot of cool gameplay styles. Like one of those things. It looked like it was like a bit trip runner at one point where she was sliding underneath stuff and then jumping over a fence. And then at other times you're on longboards and you're like zooming down city streets. And other times it's more like a Life is Strange kind of game. And if you combine a bunch of weird shit together like that, maybe that could be really cool. So I was pretty interested in what I was seeing there.
Yeah, man. I thank you for going back to that one.
I was much less interested in Gears of War E-Day.
I am interested because I have very fond memories of 1 and 2.
Totally.
And I think this, with the Mad World nod in the trailer and going back to...
I did see somebody say, like somebody's tweet from months ago that was like, what if an even slower, sadder version of Mad World? And you're like, God damn it, they did it. They had the technology.
I've heard a few people talk about the tone going back more to those of the first 2 games, which I think is neat. I wonder if Gears holds up 20 years later. Are we at that point now where I know I really liked the turn-based Gears that came out. I thought that was great.
Yeah, Gears Tactics.
I did not care much for... I don't think I even played the most recent one, but the one before that, I didn't play.
Yeah, there's like a... I played 1, 2, and 3, and then I stopped playing them after that. And I think there have been 2 more after that.
I always wanted... back when I was deep into Gears, I'm like, no, they should do the Pendulum Wars. Like, I want a game on the Pendulum Wars. I think that would be cool. And here we are with E-Day now. I think that could be pretty fucking cool.
You can't... I understand your perspective on the Pendulum War stuff, but like, you can't have a Gears of War and not have the Locusts in it. right?
Right. Right.
Like that is kind of what that game is.
Totally.
So to have a game where none of them show up would be kind of weird. So I think you had to do this. I don't know where the lore is gone. Maybe you can't do anything in the future of Gears at this point. But doing like a prequel with young Dom and young Marcus, I don't know.
We'll see, man.
I mean, obviously nothing can happen in this game, right? Because they have to go into Gears 1. So
unless they retcon something in the future by going to the past. I don't fucking know, man. Yeah. But I think general buzz I've seen for it, people are pretty curious. But I bet you leading up to it, we get some remasters too.
Yeah, I could see that. It's really interesting to see a game like this and a game like Doom Dark Ages in the same show.
Yeah.
Like one game almost feels like a response to the other of we ain't gonna do any of that cover shooter shit anymore. We're past that. Yep. And then they're like, well, new Gears of War, guys. I'm like, well, so not like we saw a gameplay. I mean, if you don't put cover in a Gears of War game, you fucked up. But also, do we need cover in shooters anymore like this? Did Doom say, yeah, you're right, we don't need this anymore and we're past this? I don't know. It's tough. I'm
not surprised.
I watched this and was a little cold, and I was just a little cold on this. They could get me back. I don't know. I wouldn't mind chainsawing a dude again.
Here's the other thing, man. I think that you and I could even play the campaign together if we wanted to.
Yeah, that would be much more exciting to me.
Yeah, that's kind of how I'm approaching this. Is like I could play the campaign with somebody. That would be I used to do that. So
I played a lot of Gears 2 Horde mode with my buddy, and
yeah, man,
we had a hell of a good time with that.
100%,
man. Back when video games were good,
Back in the day. Well, Chase, I know that was a fun look at a lot. So we obviously didn't cover everything.
This man doesn't want to talk about Star Wars.
I do, but I have intentionally not watched that trailer.
Oh, okay. I think it was. I will quickly say. So I ended up watching Ubisoft as well. I think the Ubisoft show.
Well, and I did watch Assassin's Creed. I thought that looks great.
Yeah, I thought the Ubisoft show was interesting. They kind of bet big on their big games. They showed a very long trailer and demo for Star Wars Outlaws. And they showed a very long trailer and demo of Assassin's Creed, and they showed a couple of other things relatively quickly. Like we saw the teaser for Prince of Persia: Sands of Time remake.
Then there's a story DLC cool. for the other. There's like a lot of Prince of Persia updates right now.
So much Prince of Persia right now.
Yeah.
I did think it was funny. They had like a pre-recorded thing from the dev of the Prince of Persia roguelike.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, when I'm recording this, we're like 2 weeks away from launch, and we're fixing bugs, and we're drowning, and everything's fucked. But by the time you're watching this, everything went great, right? And we've sold like 1 billion copies, so everything's fine. No bugs, right? But I was like, that's a cute human moment we got out of that.
Yeah.
I will say though, I have not cared about Star Wars Outlaws at all after seeing it originally and hearing it teased, and watching this trailer and demo, I still don't know if this is necessary for me. I don't really need an open world Star Wars game. That's just not something that necessarily appeals to me. But I think that was a good demo. I think they showed off that game really well.
That's right. I've heard really good stuff, and I was sold on it the moment I saw it. So I'm just trying.
Yeah, I think mechanically it's got some interesting ideas to it. This isn't a spoiler so much, but I did think this was interesting at least. The idea is you can get in your ship and you can go to a planet. You can go from planet to planet. You're going through space. And in the demo part they showed, the ship flies through a bunch of atmospheric clouds, and then on the other side, now you're at Mos Eisley. And I'm like, that was definitely a load screen, right? Like you're not. I mean, this isn't No Man's Sky. You're not going from space to the planet without a load, or without like a real load, and it's not 1-to-1. I'm pretty sure that no matter where you fly into that planet, you will go through clouds and end up at Mos Eisley. But I mean, I don't think that's a bad thing. In fact, that probably is better for a game like this that needs to have some sort of focus to get you to go to specific planets and specific places.
There's only 4 planets I've heard.
Okay, that would make sense. Like if they keep you, I guess they can't keep you in a system because they definitely showed off hyperspace stuff. But I mean, yes, if you go to Tatooine and you go to they didn't show this, but I'm just saying Kashyyyk. I don't know if you go to Kashyyyk, but like going from planet to planet, I could totally see that happening. But yeah, I was pretty impressed with what I saw from the trailer there, even if that's not a game I'm necessarily excited for. And I felt very similarly about Assassin's Creed as well, where it's like, man, if this game came out a decade ago, I'm there day one, baby. This is what I've been asking for.
I think Assassin's Creed is the best. This is the best it's looked since 2 for me.
I agree, but again, a decade ago, Chase would have been all over this. But I've had a decade of going like, I don't know if I care about Assassin's Creed anymore, and it might be too late to get me get me back. Even though I think this one has a lot of really cool ideas. I like the double protagonist and being able to stealth your way into different places or go,
bust the wall down,
guns blazing, yeah, like your swords unsheathed.
To be the most brutal one too.
I can see that. Yeah.
It looks very brutal. No, I am very much getting both of those games. They were high up there for me. I'm trying my best to go into Star Wars as like bright-eyed and fresh as I can. But we've got a lot of coverage we did. We're going to stream more games on Monday, as Chase and I talked about. We'll put that schedule out next week. You can follow along with all the great stuff we've got going on right there on those links. This week's a special week because I get to hang out with Chase even more. Chase, what do we got going on?
Yeah, I've got a podcast I do with my good friend Pierce Corshane, friend of our show, and it's called Pilot Program, where we watch the first episodes of every television show ever made. And this week, in fact, tomorrow is when we're recording this, is our next episode on Fallout, the new Fallout show. And we've got a couple special guests. We're bringing on Bobby Pease, that guy over there. And then we're also bringing some guy named Johnny Amazich. You probably don't know him. So we'll grab these two guys and we'll talk about some Fallout, and that'll be a good time. So you can go to shows.acast.com/pilot program, see all of our other episodes that we've done beforehand, and then see that Fallout episode, which will probably go up sometime early-ish next week.
Very cool. And then Friday night, Jiggy and I will be hanging out, friend of the show Jiggy, to play some Helldivers. That War Bond either goes live tonight or tomorrow for the new stuff, so we'll be checking that out together. But I'm looking forward to hanging out with Chase and Pierce and Johnny tomorrow night, and then we'll make sure to post the links to that everywhere we can. Chase, thanks for
Where was Contraband? You remember Contraband?
No.
That Xbox One that had that Rolling Stones song, where you're like in a jungly area and you're stealing shit.
Yeah.
What the fuck happened to that game?
I don't
maybe they closed that studio.